Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I think so. I was just thinking in today morning. I think the two best pleasure thing that I can think about is one is the weather in this Mumbai city that you can witness in month of March. I think so. Most of you who would be from Mumbai would have never witnessed this in the month of March. Today morning, I had a call with one of my colleague in Australia. I was telling him it is 18 to 20 degrees and I'm feeling nice cold. He was laughing at me. He's saying, you're telling 20 as a cold weather. I said, this is in Bombay. This is what is cold for us. And the second pleasure thing is to have a wonderful panel with whom we can pick their brains, understand what they think about driving compliant growth through using digitization and AI. We have some great insights. Let's see what we can do. Just to give you a little bit of a perspective, today digitization has become a very buzzword. It kind of has a great impact on people and how we are functioning in the businesses as well. If we take from a business perspective, as Neeraj was also mentioning, it's all about efficiency, lowering cost. Growth is something that we can say from a business insight perspective, competitiveness. And actually, if you go to see, there is a lot of change in the customer expectation that has come into picture because of digitization and AI. Because customers are expecting much bigger things from an organization as compared to earlier. Taking this forward, maybe I would like to take the first question, maybe Deepal, if you would like to take it up, is, as per you currently, how do you see digitization and AI from your experience perspective, in your industry or experience, helping the industry, and how do you see it overall, AI?
So, am I audible? Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So, before I think we go to the digitization and AI, I think it talks about driving compliant growth. So I want to focus a minute on compliance. And currently the world that we're living in, compliance is become extremely important. So there are 2 to 3 elements. One is the cost of compliance is rising. The number of compliances are rising. And the penalty of not complying is rising significantly. I mean, without, all of us know what happened recently to a large financial institution for not complying with some regulations. Yeah, so you can literally kind of come to a standstill as far as your business is concerned. So compliance is extremely important. Now, cost of compliance, if you look at 15, 20 years back, the cost of compliance was a very small percentage of your overall cost of business. What we are seeing is that because of the compliance is going up, the cost of compliance is increasing at a very fast pace. And obviously, it's a cost of doing business, and there are margin pressures, obviously. Where does digitization and AI actually come into play there? There exactly, technology typically helps you, reduce your cost. So that is one first element that technology helps you in. When you digitize something, it helps you, decrease your cost. It helps you automate things. It helps you make sure that, your control in terms of all the parameters that are required to comply are controlled. There are reminders set, so you don't deal with human behavior. You deal, it kind of focuses more on driven through more process-oriented compliance rather than a human, behavior-oriented compliance. So that's where I think digitization and AI comes. For organizations like us, for example, we operate out of more than 150 countries. So we are into logistics business and we operate out of several countries. Now, for us to comply across this entire set of geographies is an extremely important thing to do. And there is one important is lack of visibility at the detail level down the line. And second is lack of knowledge in many cases. These compliance tools, there are a lot of digitized compliance tools which are now available in the market, which actually help you both, implement controls ensure compliance at those geographies and provide the knowledge to kind of, so basically focus more is on how you kind of leverage this digitization and AI to reduce your cost and ensure better compliances. So that's, I think, I'll pause here for other speakers. So, yeah.
Thanks, Deepal. Sandeep, sir, if you can throw some light on how you see in Pidilite or your experience, wide, rich experience that you have.
Sure. So maybe I'll try and touch on two parts. One is, which is linked to the theme, which is driving compliant growth. And to just build on what Deepal said, growth, if you are in India, is a given, right? I mean, it's one of the most exciting markets in the world where everybody is looking at growth. And that growth has to be profitable. I think a subject that will get covered during the day. That growth has to be sustainable. Again, a subject that is getting covered during the day. But equally important, it must not violate the license to operate, which is that you must do your business in compliance with the rules. Unfortunately, the compliance requirements have become significantly complex. I mean, at last count, we checked, depending on number of states that you operate in, you have to tick nearly 25,000 compliances. All companies have used technology. It's there are workflows around which map compliance. But in my personal experience, as far as compliance is concerned, the bigger risk is not non-compliance, because that will not remain hidden. You know, if you don't comply, somebody will give you a notice or something. The bigger concern is false compliance, which is somebody saying, I have complied, but he has not complied. All companies like us rely on workflows. There's a pop-up which will come to me. Have you done this? I tick a radio button. Yes. So my boss thinks, yes, Sandeep Batra has done his compliance. But what if I have not? And many companies say you upload the evidence of the compliance. Nothing stops me from uploading a blank piece of paper. Who is there to check? You cannot have an army of people clicking every attachment and seeing, is it the right challan or not? In today's day and age, thanks to AI and thanks to advanced levels of digitization, you can have softwares that go through these attachments and make the life of the compliance officer far easier. Because he will then, that software or that technology will tell you what exactly has the factory manager in Himachal uploaded. Is it his son's CV or is it actual some challan of compliance? And then that brings me to the point about how do you drive growth using digitization and AI. So I think, if I were to just leave one thought with you, the purpose of digitization is not digitization, that I will eliminate paper, or, those are all consequential benefits, that you become more better governed, more environment friendly, not printing tons of paper. But I think the most important and the lens through which we should check digitization is, does it improve the ease of doing business or the ease of the way you interact with your stakeholders? It could be an employee, it could be a customer, it could be a vendor. How is your business relationship or your interaction with these key stakeholders becoming better thanks to digitization?
So just to add to you, sir, so currently I'm from an elevator and escalator industry. This market is currently, in the last 2 years, has been the only growth market globally. And there's a lot of focus on us in terms of how we are growing. Now, just to take that one point and just to keep a thought is, growth is there, but AI and digitization sometimes can be used to have good business insight and grow profitably in the right manner. So I have seen many of us kind of discount our prices just to have the market share. But then you can still grow much better if you have a better insights. And that is also one area that Definitely, digitization and AI kind of helps you a lot as we move forward. Ramesh, from your perspective, mainly from a Zepto perspective, because there is a wide range of customers and everyone that is there, how do you see a growth? Because there is definitely a huge growth potential. And how do you use digitization and AI in your sector?
Yeah. Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me here. I am based in Bangalore. I shuttle because of Zepto. It's been 10 months here. And I'm sure the weather is the best I've seen in last 10 months, right? And Zepto is a 29-month-old company, right? It's disruptive growth. The way we have seen in last 29 months, we are hitting $1 billion GMV. What it was 29 months back, it was 0 to $1 billion in 29 months, right? And the best part is it's a tech-native company from that perspective. Every aspect of what we do in finance or business or compliance, everything is tech first and tech driven. The way I would split this is, right, in terms of focusing on what's core and build the core inside, right? I'll give you an example. We have employed more than 30,000 gig riders in terms of our delivering, right? Their compliance, for example, is the PAN card, the Aadhaar card, the face recognition, right? So that's what we have done is built an app for riders where they look at, they input their PAN card and Aadhaar card, which the checks happen, and then the face recognition checks happen. So compliance is extremely important, and the riders are the ones who are actually physically interacting with the consumers, right? How do you have the right background verification, fraud check analysis, and the face recognition piece, right? How do we bring all this together? Given it's extremely core, we have built it inside, right? So the first thing is to have the entire mindset of compliance as a differentiator. And the moment you build saying that compliance will be my differentiator, will have the business continuity for me, and then you go back saying that core, non-core, and for non-core, you think of an idea that is a SaaS company today, right? And the best thing is to leverage that entire SaaS ecosystem. I'll give you another example, is the GST check we do on a monthly basis, right? If vendor is compliant today on GST, not sure he will be filing the entire GST tomorrow, right? How do I look at, vendor is not a one-time onboarding, but every month I do a vendor check, and for that I have SaaS partnership with multiple companies. I have an API call, and within the API call I figure out. So the point is, if it is not core to you, use SaaS services. If it's core to you, build it yourself, because that's going to continue your business. Coming to the customer side of things, right? It's everything what we do on the consumer side, right from pricing to inventory selection to where the store should be located. It's completely automated. For example, stores, Zepto is a micro warehouse across the cities, right? We have more than 330 warehouses. We call it dark store. It's lying in a dark alley. What we do is look at the hexagon pattern of the map, look at density, look at 30 to 40 variables in terms of where the store should be located, and then do a time motion study and saying that what is the most optimal route to take. The entire idea is not to speed the delivery and do crashes, but to reduce the time between the store to the consumer. And then that gives, how do we deliver in 10 minutes? The average distance travel is less than 2 kilometers, 1.7, 1.8. And more denser we get, the faster it happens. So there's a density ecosystem which flies. And all of this is happening through digitization, through AI tools which we have, right? So in terms of strategic of location, the moment we are closer to consumers, the cost structures automatically go down because the rider can deliver more orders per hour, and the earnings per hour is then maintained, right? So that helps in terms of the entire flywheel ecosystem. Yeah, so that's my experience.
So just to take a take from you, so like we have units which are not mobile because I have to go to my unit to serve them. So density is a very key factor. And with growth, we also wanted to see if we can build in density. And just taking that cue in terms of last year, we kind of built in an AI and digital technology in terms of to sell with only into denser area and not to go into beyond, so that we build in this efficiency. So just taking a cue from that, nothing else. Rakesh, from your perspective, from both and or your previous experience as well, how do you have seen this coming in your business?
Can you hear me? Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me here. It's a great platform to share our views and, of course, get to know a different perspective. considering the today's discussion, which the topic we have, I think if I just bucketize, let's say the overall, how do we use technology? Like I think uh, Ramesh mentioned that how they are, how Zepto is using that technology across front. So I think if I divide it into three parts, right? One is the product which boat, let's say, offers to the consumer. The second piece is the how do we provide the customer experience, right? And the third piece is the entire finance controls, gamut of controls we have to manage. If I start with product, I think this boat currently offers different products and use technology to its the best. We have, if I just give one example, that we have Bluetooth devices with ANC technology, right, which is active noise cancellation. It's one of its kind to start with. And there are multiple ways that we are offering multiple platforms to offer these products. The second piece is this was just an example. The second piece is the product customer experience, and we as boat use AI very extensively. When I say that, we sell roughly 1 lakh units per day, and our customer requests, feedbacks is roughly 10,000, on a daily basis. We have a platform which is AI driven, which tracks the quality and response time of those, the response we give. And we track it on a daily basis that, okay, we have given 10,000 or 5,000 responses. What was the quality of the responses? What kind of language we had used, and how AI, kind of transform whether the response was in red zone, amber zone, or let's say blue zone. So I think that's another part of how do you best utilize the technology. The last and the most important for someone like us as finance fraternity is that how do we get the finance controls in place with the help of technology. I think philosophy and approach we use, and it's not that something which I've seen in both in my previous organization like HUL. What we have seen is that whatever is repetitive, right? Whatever is SOP driven, right? And wherever the controls are sensitive, that should be automated. I think these three principles we have always kept in mind and always driven that automation, digitization, and driven that. So I think that's broadly for me that how can we best utilize technology. And there are examples beyond controls also. Let's say we are also planning to start our FP&A chatbot, right, which can really tell you that there is a query which is of course the restricted access, that what is the gross margin of this SQ. The chatbot can answer that. I think these are the access, and then the free flow data exchange between the key management people can be easily can really help us navigate some of the best decisions. I think that's broadly from my side. Hussein.
So while we speak about digitization, one thing that normally at least what I have seen in my past experience, the biggest challenge that we face is how to implement it. Being a legacy organization of 25 years in India, the first challenge that we faced is data, because most of the time, most of the information is not structured the way AI or digitization requires. One is that. Second is sometimes the systems are not geared to that level. And third is I have always seen a challenge in terms of people adaptability. We do so much things around digitization and AI within our systems, but how is the change management happening? So if I can pick these three things in terms of the challenges in adaptation from a system and environment perspective, and second is on the adaptation of this digitization and AI within the organization first. So, sir, if you would like to throw some light first on this.
Yeah, sure. I think when we look at digitization, while yes, there is a lot of talk about digitization, but if you look at the journey of a finance professional over the last, at least in my case, over 3 decades, I have migrated from calculator to computer. That is also digitization. But today's digitization is of a different level where a lot of interfaces are becoming digital rather than it being physical. So obviously there will be a lot of resistance. And maybe I'll use one example to illustrate. I think this was something that got necessitated during COVID. We have in Pidilite about 4,000 distributors who call on over 400,000 retail points that keep our products. Obviously, in COVID, while we could connect with the 4,000 distributors, because there was a technical, or at least there was email and there was some software between us and the distributor. But what about distributor to retailer? Physical travel was not possible. So at that time, we figured out, why don't we look at some kind of an app through which the retailer can order. And it was basically out of survival, that whole product or the development. As to in a time in COVID, how do you now make sure that the retailer can order what he wants? So we did not do that as a cost-saving initiative. We developed an app, we called it Genie. So the retailer on his phone has it. He can use that app to order whatever he wants. Order goes to distributor and it gets supplied. Initially, lot of resistance, because the retailer is used to either calling up the distributor, or more importantly, the distributor calling on him, what product you want, what stuff that you want. But, so what we did initially was, of course, some amount of incentive. So if you order on the app, give him 25 bips extra margin from whatever he orders on the app. And through that, the adoption started. Then 2 things happened. One, because the need was so compelling and the need was actually there, the adoption by the retailers took off at a level that we had never anticipated. And very few companies today in India have, of our type, maybe service companies may have, but in the industry that we are in, very few companies have this kind of an app, and we believe our adoption is amongst the highest, so much so that nearly 30% of all our business comes via the app, which I think is it all happened in kind of couple of years. So when initially, yes, there will be this amount of resistance, and you'll have to figure out what works. Is it carrot? Is it carrot plus stick? Approach, incentive, disincentive, so on and so forth. So what we are now doing is, we have removed the incentive because we found adoption has reached more than acceptable levels, and now there are certain products that are available only on, if you order via the app. The distributor guy doesn't call on them because he also may forget what products have I. We have such a wide range of products to sell. And then that whole app has now pivoted. Now many more features are being added to the app basis the feedback that has come from the user community. For example, whatever trade promotions are being run now are available on the app. When the material will reach is available on the app. When the salesperson will call, the retailer knows everything. So it's basically democratizing the whole process by putting the power in the hands of the user. So initially, yes, you will have these challenges. You will have people within the organization who feel threatened. That, today my job is to call on the retailer and get order. Tomorrow, if the retailer is placing the order, what will I do? So we were very, very clear that, look, we are not using this to get rid of some people, but we will improve your productivity. We can do more sales. We can go deeper. In distribution, we could use these people to work with the users, could be whoever uses our products. So making sure that you, and if I were to sum it up, you must have something in it for every stakeholder to ensure that you get good adoption. If you leave this risk, uncertainty in the minds of any stakeholder, कि मेरा क्या होगा when this tool is implemented, then you will have resistance and reluctance.
Thanks, sir. I think so. Much appreciated. I think so. This is very important because adoption also comes when people start accepting it. Or the biggest threat that I used to start with and used to hear is, "मेरा job तो नहीं जाएगा." And that is something that we have to recreate as an assurance that it is only going to help rather than destroy or kind of construct something. Deepal, from your perspective in the logistics sector, how do you see this as a challenge, both from a system and change management perspective? Because again, I believe logistics has also been very traditionally grown business, and AI is something new. So just wanted to take a pick on that.
So Hussein, first, I was just noticing the entire panel, it's actually brick and mortar. So either we are producing something or we're delivering physically something from a panel perspective. So, and all of us are talking about digitization and AI. I mean, so this is how much the penetration of digitization and AI has happened. You can't escape it. Yes, so we've done a lot of transformative work over the last few years. As all cargo, since we operate out of so many offices, there has been competition in terms of platforms offering freight forwarding services, etc., etc. And what we realized is that we need to transform. So we need to also plug in the digitization and the AI modeling for this. Now, there are two parts that we've done. So we've done a lot of transformation. One on the sales front. So we built what is known as an app which allows customers to book your freight online globally. Now, initially, we got a little bit lucky because I think we launched that somewhere in February of 2020. We launched it. And fortunately or unfortunately, the world went into the COVID lockdown. So the adoption rate got pushed very high for the digitization. So we literally see now a way of life, mostly almost 56 to 60% of booking, depending upon which month it is happening through digital platform. So that's a huge thing for somebody like us who's actually doing, absolutely brick and mortar business. So that's on the sales front and on the operating front that we are doing. We did a lot of transformation also on the back office side, the finance transformation. We are leading this globally. Now, both these places. In the first case, the adoption was easy because it happened, just before COVID, and we were forced. So adoption is either you're forced, and if you're not forced to adopt, then there's a lot of resistance that we have all seen, and more particularly, it's a huge change management. So the way when we do the finance transformation, what we did is initially, I think from our experience, what we are sharing is that people are used to working in a particular way. Digitization actually changes the way you actually are working. So it's actually a change in your model. So it's just not change in your work, it's a change in your model. And we see a lot of resistance. So what we do is, we had a few town halls. We put a goalpost that this is what we want to do. And we kind of encouraged a lot of discussions that, what are your challenges and, how this new way of working will change those things, Like, for example, we did, I'll give you a classic example in banking globally, a lot of things were still done, manually. And initially, when we moved to a central bank or a single couple of banks, everything we said we'll do digitally. And we got a lot of resistance to start with. Once people started realizing that what we are actually offering, and we demonstrated some of these, we got a very, very good, feedback. Also, we got a lot of encouragement from the people down the line because they were started to save time. So there are 2-3 fears, I think. One is everybody is always afraid of getting on a learning curve because everybody is, in today's world, everybody is super busy, typically. So you actually have to spend time, learn something new. So that resistance is what you have to get past. Second is what is in it for me, both as a customer or as a, an employee. I think if you are able to break that, it's really very important. I'll give you, the apps that we're using, initially a lot of elderly people also, did not join the apps or did not use them. The moment they learned it once and they realized the efficiency and the ease of doing it, the adoption rate literally goes up significantly. So I think adoption, if any system process that you implement, if it is not adopted, then it's failed. So I think solutioning is only, I think, 10 to 15% of the job. Actually, job is the implementation and adoption around it. We've seen a lot of systems which, haven't been adopted and they've failed, in spite of them being very good. So one is how you place them, how you encourage people to use them, how you solve their problems, how you communicate to them that your problems are solved, and demonstrate, of course, lead by example, and then finally, implement. I think those are, things that we've done for adoption. I think same is for customers also. So customers, once they forcefully they were using the app, but after COVID, nobody's gone back to the original booking systems. So I think the key lies in couple of these areas which I said in terms of adoption. And resistance, you'll definitely face everywhere. It's how you actually deal with it. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Deepal. So, Ramesh, just a thought in my mind is because Zepto, all the consumer industry related companies, it's, as you started also saying, everything is based on AI. Even in your environment, do you see this as a challenge, or this is a basic necessity and there's a lot of adoption by default within the organization?
Yeah, good question. See, overall, it's a digitally native tech-first company, right? But the way I'll put it is slightly different. It's a mindset, tool set, and a skill set problem, right? The first is the mindset in terms of how do you, and mindset typically is basically leadership team coming together, saying that this is how we will approach a problem statement. As long as if your leadership team is not aligned on this approach, right, then I don't think the rest will follow. So having that conversation closed is the number one priority. And then the moment you say, okay, this is the way to approach, then there is a front end and then there's a back end. Right? Front end is anything which is customer facing, and then back end is all which enables towards that. There will be, the first money will be put on front end, finance processor and those systems will come in the back end, right? And hence they will say, okay, what is the incremental cost? The role of the finance is to look at the back end and say, how do I enable, and basically it's an ROI, right? How do I look at an FP&A function, which is just not reporting the numbers, but actually giving the actionable insight on a daily basis or a real-time basis back to a key account manager or inventory, or how do we optimize on the growth numbers, right? The ability to connect every single thing which you're doing in finance back to growth, I think that's where a lot of investment will happen. That's on the mindset piece, on the front end and back end. Then on the skill sets, right? The next is tool set. Which are the right tools? Should it be in-house and outsource? Right? And then have the SaaS landscape worked out, build the entire tools together. And then the third thing is the skill sets. So while we are a digital native company, we hire people across, right, who are understand the systems or people who don't understand the systems well, and ability to give the right skill sets and the entire function towards it. I'll give an example on the inventory side. It's for example, in Zepto, we have two businesses, which is fresh, which the inventory is not more than 24 hours to 36 hours, right, in terms of the freshness. How do I go back from inventory management, going back saying that, okay, this is the demand I'm looking at, demand at the India level, then at the 330, 350 dark stores which I have, by the hour, right? The ability to focus and then plan inventory, going backward to farmers in terms of saying that this is the demand I will be foreseeing, and then looking into the collection centers, then do primary packaging, bring it to dark stores, to consumers. Now let's say you have done all that well, but there might be demand variations because of rain and other patterns. How do I connect the inventory to my pricing systems, which is dynamic in nature, right? On the pricing system, I don't have a pan-India pricing and don't have a city-level pricing. I have a pricing at the dark store level, right? Saying that, and dark store, depending on the consumer cohort basis, then in terms of inventory availability and the competition price index. So ability, as a finance guy, ability to look at every single aspect. Inventory is a balance sheet line item, pricing is a P&L line item. Every line item, how do I look at and go upstream and look at and solve it structurally, right? So the moment you go back, look at the finance processes, connect everything back to the growth, back to business, and then bring that differentiated experience, right? I think then it becomes a no-brainer. It's not digital versus non-digital, but that's the way of functioning. And if you are in a disruptive growth scenario, or if you're looking at an industry where there is a change, complete disruption happening, I think that's the only way in my mind.
Thanks, Ramesh. Rakesh, just to take a little bit of a different point of view for the audience as well, we've been talking a lot internally in terms of what is benefiting digitization, but what I have seen in the past is the customer expectations is changing rapidly because of AI and digitization. Just to give an example, we are getting requests from our customers saying that जैसे Zomato, Swiggy बताता ना कि आपका order हुआ, ये restaurant बना रहा है, अब deliver हो रहा है, now it is getting, they want the similar kind of stuff for my elevator industry saying that, okay, we have placed an order. It has gone into manufacturing. Now it is getting packed. Now it is getting shipped. Now it will get installed. And in the service piece, they want update almost every day in terms of how many trips the elevators has run. So what I'm trying to say is the expectation is increasing and it's kind of changing very fast. And when we talk about growth, growth is naturally can come only once you are able to deliver to the customer expectation. Maybe what we were doing past may not work today, as even Neeraj was mentioning. So from that perspective, how do you see it in terms of both and your customer profiling that you have?
Perfect. See, no, you are absolutely right. The customer expectations have changed significantly. And, we do face such issues. So we have broadly 3 set of businesses, right? Or other channels of our growth. One is we have our online set of channel, which is selling it to, let's say, Flipkart or let's say Amazon of the world. The second is a traditional way of, selling it to the distributor. The third one, which is, we are planning to scale up is our own D2C, website. And this is where, we had, and something which we started on our own that, because we didn't have our D2C experience, there were multiple challenges we faced. In some or other way that, technology did play a role, to track. So let's say the example which you mentioned that, how do we track the entire, the delivery of the product, right? We are not into logistics business, right? But we wanted to get into D2C, right? How do we ensure that, if there is a supply which has been, or let's say if there is some product being offered to a consumer, it has to reach on time. If there is a delivery timeline of 48, of course, there are partners which really help you, but with your own system, how can you, track that? I think that's something which we developed on our own. Our IT team came up with a solution. And as we speak, we can, of course, with the help of delivery partner as well, we are able to track every consignment or every shipment we send, to the customer on a real-time basis. And that's really helps, you know, to get your D2C business scale up. Because for Flipkart, Amazon, that's how, you know, they have been tracking. So I think that's entire journey of, you know, scaling up that from whatever that a small business to a level of more than 200 crore was a great experience for we all had. I think that's one experience which I can. The second experience, let's say in terms of, you know, like I said, that we sell our product uh, roughly 1 lakh products on a daily basis, and we get 10,000 customers feedback on a daily basis. Getting those requests, right, analyzing those requests and responding. If you can do it in a minute's time, right, that's something the customer you know, wants. And that's exactly the platform which we created based on extensive AI technology really helps us, you know, translate the language, analyze the problem. You know, there are multiple FAQs fed into the AI system. And then responding to those questions which I've, you know, was not the question, the feedback which has come in, you know, from the multiple customers on a daily basis. I think that's something, and at the end, on a daily basis, AI also tells you that, you know, this is the quality of the responses you have given. And building that, you know, that all amendments, changes on a daily basis is something which we keep doing on a, so that's broadly on a customer front, if you ask me. But I think coming back to the point which, you know, we were discussing, let me share one example, and if we have time, Hussein. Yeah. I think how the adoption of technology kind of fast-tracked during, you know, COVID time. I'll give you an example, you know, when we were integrating or merging GSK with HUL, right? The date of merger was 1st of April 2020, right? And the lockdown started on 22nd March. I think in 10 days' time, we had to plan that 3 things, right? How do we ensure that we merge these 2 entities? The deal was more than $4 billion deals. How do we integrate that business, or let's say adopt that balance sheet and the financials on virtually on 1st of April? How do we not lose business? How do we cut down our losses and inventory pileup doesn't happen? And to do all of this, I think, you know, of course, we managed to, it might be one of its, or let's say first of its virtual board meeting happened on 1st of April and we adopted the balance sheet. And of course, we kind of looked at multiple rules which came in, you know, under MCA. That was one experience. We literally created more than 500 apps. Not only, let's say, for GSK integration, for entire HUL ecosystem. We created 500 apps, be it HR, be it, let's say, how do we onboard any new employee, right? Because there were new employees joining, right? At least 10, 20 members of my team were new joinees. How do we ensure that they join it through app, right? There were no physical, you know, physical interaction happening that point in time. That kind of really helped us, you know, or made us think that, you know, how can, let's say, for every solution, or let's say for every problem, right? How can we create an app and then get the things done, you know, without getting a physical interaction? Or I think that kind of, I'm just giving those examples so that, you know, like we keep saying that necessity is the mother of invention. I think that those 60 odd days we could really see that, you know, how could all of us come together, make it successful, and literally we didn't lose any GST input credit during those days, and we didn't lose any business. Of course, there were multiple things also we did, but I think this was one of the best examples which always keeps in, which always I remember whenever I see that, you know, how do we best utilize the technology.
Thanks. Thanks, Rakesh. With the possibility of time, maybe I would like to, if we are okay, just to open the question to the audience, and if there are some questions to the panelists, we would love to have it, and maybe we'll try our level best to kind of answer it.
Do we have any questions?
Hi, my name is Vikas. This is a question. While we talk about digitalization and AI, in terms of compliance, this is what I'm asking. How do you ensure that it gets evolved with the changes in the law? Kind of right now there are multiple fiascos going on, and more on compliances. So while digitalization and AI ensures that the existence is there, how do you, the change management is what I'm more focused on. So what is your take on that?
Let me try that. So, like I said, compliance is very important, and I'll also build upon what I think Sandeep said, which is very important. So you have a tool which digitally so there are 2 to 3 problems in compliance. One, compliance is lack of knowledge. So if you're the person at the ground level, he doesn't even know. For example, a shops and establishment renewal, he does not even know whether that renewal is coming up or that is, it needs to be complied, or an HR person for a particular regulation. So first is knowledge. So if you have a compliance tool which has a detailed checklist, it's a one-time exercise to understand which all regulations apply to your business. You create that checklist and you build it into a system, and you set up reminders also to the respective person and create a workflow around that. So if a reminder, and we have that, if a reminder goes that, okay, on the 6th, for example, you have to pay your TDS. If it is not paid and challan is not uploaded, then this is non-compliant and you get an escalation on 7th. And then of course on 8th and 9th and whatever. So that is one way of ensuring compliance. The challenge that I think Sandeep mentioned was very important. So one, the knowledge part is taken care of. Second is driving behavior through forced workflows. That is the second piece which you can help with. The third, which Sandeep very importantly said, and I would like to address that, is how do you deal with somebody just uploading a blank piece of paper and not actually complying. Now, there I think AI comes in. So what we are doing now, I don't know if many of you all know that, I'll take another 1 minute to answer the entire thing, but there is the OCR, the optical character recognition, has now been layered up with the AI. In our business, we do a lot of documentation. So the shipping bills, the packing list, everything comes on a physical format. You actually scan it, the system can read the OCR, convert that into data, and the AI can also kind of ensure that the data is more than 99% accurate. So basically, the scanned copy can be converted into data and matched with what is required. So it's a little bit more futuristic, but there is a possibility to ensure that your scanned documents are also kind of pristine and you know that your compliance has happened. So this is the only way to deal with it, as I know as of now. I mean, that's the best way to deal with it. I'll pause.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So, Yogesh this side. So, Mr. Sandeep, you mentioned that 30% business comes from through the apps now, and Mr. Rakesh, you also mentioned that you have created 500 sort of apps, so kind of grid which has been created, and the AIs we are using. So, what kind of challenges you foresee? The benefit growth, it's definitely going to support. So, the complexity, is there any complexity or the challenges is being also there? If you can spare the lights on. Thanks.
So I think one big challenge is that and something that we are all at this moment grappling with, that you have created so many digital assets. Now, they may be talking to one core system, let's say in somebody's case could be SAP or whatever. But unfortunately, these digital assets don't talk to each other because they have all been developed by some developer or the other. Maybe they were developed in silos. And we are grappling with similar situations that you have now, I don't remember the count, but let's say we have 100 such digital tools. They may be talking to one common tool, or they may not be. For example, we have a compliance tool and we have a employee reimbursement tool. Totally disconnected tools, but they have one thing in common, which is employee master. Now, how do you ensure that there is one version of truth? And unlike an ERP, where you have one, as they say, enterprise-wise accounting solution, there is no such enterprise-wise app. So you have to ensure that when you start this journey, or at whatever stage of journey you are, at least aspects like master data, governance, and security, those should never get compromised. You will give development to multiple developers, or there are SaaS models available, but ensure that at the center level, you have very strict control over what masters are they feeding off, and there should be one version of truth. What is the access control that you have, because systems today can get hacked through any door that you may leave open, and the governance around the apps, because that to me will become the biggest challenge going forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Just to add, I think you mentioned that, and Sandeep also mentioned that there are multiple apps which we have created, the challenges we face. I think it's very important to have, and I think there is most of you would be aware that there is data lake. Most of the organization have started building, right? I saw it happening in HUL. I saw it happening in board. What it does, let's say, if any of the vendor, right? So there is a supply chain team which has created the app, onboarded the vendor. There's a finance team making the payments, right? There is a quality team assessing the quality of that vendor's products, right? There is timely supply of those products from the logistics teams. At one click, you can look at the entire data for that particular vendor. Is this vendor supplying the right quality of product? Are we making the payment to this vendor on a timely basis, right? Is this vendor supplying us on the timely basis or not? I think this is something which, once you have multiple apps not talking to each other, the data lake comes to rescue and really helps us build that database and solve, provide many such analytics. I think that's something which is most of the organization is doing.
So there's a red sign over here, time's up for me. So maybe I think so I can see more questions that are needed to be posed. Maybe in the break we can have this. Okay, we have time. Thanks.
Yeah. So, hi, my name is Vishal. I'm from Raymond. So I have two questions. I know there is a paucity of time, but I'll quickly pose two questions. So one is on the adoption that we are talking about, all the digitization. So whenever we started adopting dashboarding of FP&A data, for example, and adoption, I mean, down the level, the finance team has actually put it very nice dashboard. But there are two requirements which we keep coming from the senior leadership team. Once they are so used to see a particular format in a particular way. Even digitalization looks like a Excel format coming in the final dashboard. That's one. So it's a big challenge for us. And second is how to actually drive through that adoption at a senior leadership team. Because the objective of digitization was for them to directly look at the dashboard on a click of a button from mobile and not keep asking the same questions. I mean, no offense, but it keeps coming at the midnight also. You see, what's the number, what's going on, and we need to keep reminding them there is a, nice Power BI dashboard created on your mobile phone on a click of a button you can do. So how to drive through that? That's question number one. Question two is a bit unrelated. We are trying to work on a simulation model on forecasting. Though forecasting is totally manual driven, depending on the channel mix, the sales mix, the category mix, and then one person from finance actually puts their head together. So any of your experience on simulating using the ML based on past 6-7 years of data, having AI, and then putting the forecast together? So two unrelated questions, sorry, but I thought I'll quickly post that.
On the ML piece, I guess he had already covered one topic on the inventory management. Maybe you want to just take it up.
Sure. See, at Zepto, right, the inventory turnaround is much faster. We do 20 turns in a year, right, which is basically 18 days as a DOH and still doing $1 billion business. In that, there's a data science team. So everything comes with an investment, guys. So in terms of data science team, putting all the entire structure together, it starts with, not data science, starts with data modeling, analytics team, which is also reporting to finance. And data analytics team builds the model on random forest or multiple other methods. And the way we look at it is at a brand level, SKU level, spread across all the dark stores across the country, and then looking at what is the variations you can have and optimizing between out of stock versus wastage and shrinkage rate. How do I do? So that's where the way to, that's when on the analytics side, you build the models and the models will be a particular percentage accurate. It will not be completely accurate. Then the data science team pick up those models and then put it further. And it doesn't stop. So there will always be some amount of variations between, then what we do is connect this to the pricing function. So if there is a MAPE or there's a standard deviation in terms of inventory, you have procured more or less, then the pricing teams will change the price accordingly to match the supply and demand piece. So in terms of doing this analytics, ultimately what's important is the return on capital employed. How do I look at the big picture, ROCE metric, then go back to all the variables I have to influence that, and then for each of the variables, what is the pieces you have to solve, right? And to solve that, what is the right team to start with? It starts with finance in terms of putting the entire layer together, then having an analytics, FN analytics team to start with, maybe a couple of people, and then build a smaller prototype saying that this is the kind of benefit you can see. The moment a business or a CEO, anybody looks at, okay, this is the potential, and hence the investment which comes in, right? So you cannot, and hence doing the small POCs, prototypes becomes a much more important piece, right? That's the focus. On the adoption piece, right? Whatever you do without adoption, there's no meaning, right? And the way I have real-time sales number, gross profit numbers, where is the inventory lying across the stores? I am not only this, I'm opening up my inventory, the entire WMS system to the brands, saying that, you know what, you have inventory is lying in these stores, and if your inventory is not selling, I'm not going to give you next PO, right? So it is their incentive to give the right margins for us to also enable to sell. And hence, a lot of time, for example, to solve for top management, just create a summary table here. I'm saying, unke liye, in whatever format they need, put a summary, but beyond that, then rest everything drive through the entire systems. The best way to articulate is the delta benefit you're going to give. If there is a delta benefit and people see value in it, they will adopt. As simple.
And just to further add, I think we are working on something called FP&A chatbot. There will always be, let's say any of our CXOs or senior members, they will be looking either trends or discrete numbers, right? Trends can always be looked at with, like you mentioned, Power BI analytics. But I think this FP&A chatbot kind of really help us. Let's say if I want to understand this SKU gross margin for the month, I can type it and get that information. I think that is something which, there are a lot of tools we have started. I think a lot of people have started developing. I think this could be one of those easy solutions. I hope so.
Hello, good morning. myself Faraz. I'm representing Naqad. First of all, at the outset, wish to express thank you for the beautiful conversation. The personal anecdotes from your respective journeys certainly added perspective. Taking a step back, going towards the broader theme, which is driving compliant growth using digitalization and AI, wish to ask that, I mean, compliances are laid out to safeguard the health of that particular area in which compliances are laid out for. Wish to know what compliances are we executing to safeguard the cash flow, safeguard the cash flow front, the working capital front, and how we are embracing AI into that zone.
So obviously, to your question, and I can understand where you're coming from, I don't think there is any legal compliance there, other than maybe in some industries if shelf life of the finished product is mandated, maybe in food or pharmaceutical. But I think to your larger point of how do you use, if not compliance, at least digitization and AI to free up cash, that all depends upon the business that you are in. Speaking of our business, I think collecting cash from customers is something that through digitization you can simplify. There are multiple ways you can put the power in the hands of the customer, or like in the case of banks, you take the power to whatever, pull collections. With digitization and AI, certainly you can have better management of inventory, and I think my panelists alluded in greater detail of how they do it. Every company will have their own ecosystem and supply chain system as to how you ensure that your cash turns around much faster. Today there is no dearth of technology that is available, starting from forecasting to the last mile collection of money.
Thank you. So in summarily, timely reconciliations could be one of these steps to,
Yeah, can I add to that?
Yeah.
So just to add to what Sandeep said. So I know we're losing time, we'll just finish in a minute. So working capital management is very important, and though there is no legal compliance required, but many companies do borrowings, and there are bank covenant compliances, which are very important. So your capability to meet the bank covenant is very important, and many times, in a day-to-day business, you lose sight of that as we go along, because if you're over trading or business, in many cases, some businesses are cyclical in nature. So through the cycles, you may lose track of the bank covenant. So yes, in compliance, the bank covenant have to be plugged in for compliance purposes. Second is, most of the softwares based on your collection behavior, the customer collection behavior, can forecast both your receivables and payables, and you can have a projected cash flow. So we work on a 12-month projected cash flow. So we know exactly what are going to be my collections, what are going to be my outflows, and what are going to be my investments or what repayments. So a projected cash flow, and if you add AI to it, when able to use algorithms to predict behavior in terms of receivable management, it adds to the entire thing, and you can optimize your working capital management. That is what we have learned. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Deepal. Thank you, Sandeep.
So I guess there could be more questions, I think, so we can also take it during the break. But I would like to thank the entire panelists. I think so we had a great insight. Just to summarize, few of the thoughts that I can take away from this discussion is, naturally, digitization and AI has a lot of impact. We spoke about compliance, how it helps in compliance. It like adoption-wise, Sandeep mentioned in terms of it can be incentivized, it can be sometimes forced, which is necessary, and sometimes you have to kind of put it in. We have great examples both from Rakesh and Ramesh's, where we are looking at digitization, which is the core for their business per se, and how they utilize this to kind of drive growth, be it from a technology, from a customer standpoint perspective, or for internally, how to kind of leverage it. So thank you, everyone, and I think so it was a great interaction for us. Thanks. Thank you.